It's the third and final hour of OverDrive here on this Thursday evening. Aaron Korolnek, Frank Corrado, and Carlo Colaiacovo in for Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog. You can see them on the TSN hockey panel ahead of Leafs and Seattle tonight on TSN 4. And OverDrive is brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Joe from the Bridge blew up our phones with
He's a genius.
The great debates that I can recall when it comes to a sports radio topic. And he posed the question, Blue Jays getting Ohtani, the Maple Leafs getting McDavid, what's the biggest deal? The bigger deal between the two?
What has the better chance?
Well, what has the better chance or biggest? What would be the bigger
that's
deal?
That's not how Joe phrased it. He asked what would have the bigger impact.
The bigger occasion would be Connor McDavid coming to the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't care. Like, nothing moves the needle in this town like Toronto Maple Leafs news, and the best player in the world, if he were to come to this team, there would be nothing like that. Nothing like that.
You're absolutely right. There's no debating that.
I'm trying to think if there would be, the debate would probably be Ohtani would be the only comparable. In basketball, I mean, I don't know.
James.
But he's 40 years old.
Prime,
Like if Steph Curry
Wembanyama.
Sure, if Wembanyama's like San Antonio, I'm out.
Yeah. Remember you asked Bobby Webster?
Yeah, well, I did. And it was a really
This guy asked
question.
Bobby Webster before the season started if they were scouting Wembanyama.
That was 2 years ago, and that was a good question. They should have been scouting Wembanyama. They could have had Wembanyama.
I guess you got to do your due diligence. So,
I mean, Ohtani would be the only one you could compare to the impact of McDavid coming to Toronto. Now, I guess number one, if you sign McDavid, theoretically.
What about Messi to MLS?
Yeah, I guess, but that's, if he can Toronto FC, sure.
Messi to TFC.
Yeah, I don't think that's it.
Still wouldn't move the needle.
No, I don't think that's
what?
Close. I mean, Toronto FC's not like the Blue Jays.
Not like the Maple
Messi
Leafs,
to TFC would blow this market up.
It would, but I don't think to the same extent as Ohtani to the Jays or McDavid.
I think you'd be surprised.
Maybe. I just don't think the soccer crowd is.
That's a different conversation than, who's getting recognized. You remember that, between Messi
Tom
and
Brady?
Yeah, I think that's a different conversation because the Leafs are just so starved to win a championship, and obviously having the best player in the world on your team would help your chances in that regard. And he's from Toronto. He grew up a Leafs fan. I just think all those elements of it make it like, how can anything have a bigger impact than that?
It'd be special. It would be special.
Okay, so
you know what I asked, guys? Why not both? Why not both?
And
hopefully, everything.
Hopefully, one of the two happens.
I would take one.
The likelihood of one of the two happening are probably Jerry's percentage 0,
like 5%, maybe.
But
10.
I mean, what if we change the question? You guys said what would be bigger. What if the question is how I phrase it? What has the better chance of happening?
McDavid's still a couple years out. Ohtani's a free agent right now.
Okay.
I would probably say at some point in their respective careers, there's more of a likelihood that McDavid is a Leaf than Ohtani is a Blue Jay. Because, and we'll have Ron Francis joining us, right at the tail end of his career, I think his last season actually. Pride of Sault Ste. Marie is Ron Francis. He joined the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he's going to join us in about 25 minutes.
So I got to cut you off because there's some breaking news in the NHL.
Oh, okay. I thought Ohtani signed with the Jays. My heart almost.
We got the sting. We got to have the.
Yeah, got to give the break.
All right, fill me in. I don't know what it is.
Nikita Zadorov is off the board, and he's going to the Vancouver Canucks.
Wow.
Nikita Zadorov to the Vancouver Canucks for a third and a fifth.
I would have paid that price.
Third and a fifth is.
I would have paid that price.
Why? Who wouldn't pay that price?
You probably just want. Well, what did Luke Shen go for last year?
About the
third. This is them saying like the market's thin. We got a guy that a lot of teams want. Give us a little extra candy, so you throw in the fifth.
So that's an interesting move. And keep in mind, Vancouver made the move with Beauvillier, kind of clears some salary cap space, I imagine. And that, I guess, this is the corresponding move. You're getting him early. That's the thing. It's still November. The trade deadline's in March. And for Vancouver, I mean, that's a complete no-brainer. Great move for them.
They're probably going to re-sign him.
And why Calgary is selling now would be a curious question.
Well, they probably realize that they've tried to re-sign him. He's admitted that he doesn't want to play there anymore. Remember, Craig Conroy said he wants guys to play there.
Well, he asked for a trade like 15 minutes after a game.
Yeah, after he was the highlight of the night in the Leafs.
And I guess the fact he's healthy now, you might not.
You got a third and a fifth.
Yeah, you got a third and a fifth. That's probably what you're getting at the trade deadline.
I was talking to our boys Sekeres and Price out in Vancouver this week. Shout out to them.
Love those guys.
But like the Canucks have bought themselves so much currency here early in the season, and you know the way it is within a group, Carlo. It's like there's a certain mentality with the group, like we're going to be a good team. We have higher expectations, but maybe on the outside, people don't think very highly of you as a group. They've done such a good job here and put themselves in a spot earlier in the season where they've accumulated so many points. Now they're, third in the Pacific on any given day. And it's like, we actually have a chance to do something here. So why squander that? We've kind of gone all in here with this group. There was talk, within the fan base that they should tear things down and start the rebuild again. They didn't do that. They opted for a quicker rebuild. So they went and got Korolnek and they re-signed JT Miller. Now they're a good team. It's like, yeah, go out and get Zadorov and see if it can make your team, you make it more worthwhile while you're at a good spot in the standings.
And you know what? Credit the Vancouver Canucks. They put themselves in the position to tell their GM, we're serious about being good this year. Go out and improve our team, and that's exactly what they did. It is a great move for Vancouver.
Yeah, and I guess the question is for Calgary now, Tanev, Hanifin, you imagine those guys are even more likely to be traded than before, but I think we kind of assume that to be the case.
Well, Hanifin before the season started was close to a
re-signing there.
Yeah,
he was.
Well, that should tell you what direction the Calgary Flames are going to go in. You know who would have liked Nikita Zadorov on the Leafs? Jimmy Ralph.
I don't doubt
Jimmy
that.
Ralph
and
would have
joining us
Zadorov.
now on the Maple Toyota hotline is not only Jimmy Ralph, but also Joe Bowen, the broadcast team ahead of the Leafs and the Kraken down at Scotiabank Arena. Good evening, fellas. How we doing?
Very well, thank you, guys. That paycheck's going to look good. You guys double dipping here. I think that's terrific.
Well, thanks for the. We'll send in the invoice.
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
We'll say
overtime.
Joe Bowen.
That's time and a half anyway.
Yeah.
It wasn't
said
Inco when I was working there. I know that.
So let's get your take on the Zadorov move for Vancouver. Again, it's for a third and a fifth. Zadorov from Calgary to Vancouver. Your instant reaction? That just coming down.
The one thing that is interesting is that they traded within their own division, and this early. And that used to be never happened, right? You went to the different conference or something of that nature. So they're going to have a lot of Zadorov coming back to haunt the Calgary Flames. But it's an interesting. You know what? Vancouver has sort of come out of nowhere and played exceptionally well for Rick Tocchet. And, this is going to certainly boost their room and the fan base that they realize they have something pretty good going here, and let's add to it and see if they can't take a run at things.
So, Ralphie, now that Zadorov is off the board, I think you take a look at some of the names that are still available that fit the mold of what that player is. Big, strong, physical. Like, he probably is better suited to play on a third pair, but he could play higher in your lineup if needed. Like, that kind of player, it's a little thinner out there. So what do the Maple Leafs focus on here when they look to bolster the blue line?
How's Luke Shen doing?
I think he's got term on his contract.
I don't know. Is there a limit on guys coming back? That seems to be the thing over the last few years, which is why they went out and made the deal for Luke Shen last year. That's why they brought in Jake McCabe. And sometimes, though, Frankie, I think we fall in love with players. We see Zadorov with one big hit, one game here in Toronto, and you think, okay, we want that. And yet you don't watch him game in and game out to see what the deficiencies are in his game and why Calgary would give him up in the first place. So, as much as it feels like it might be a missed opportunity, I think that's why they have pro scouts that probably delve into those decisions a little deeper than we do.
Bonesy, Ralphie, were you the two guys that called down to the video review at the shootout last game? Because we were wondering, how did they find that replay so quick to actually call the double tap back?
Well, first thing, Ralphie had it correct. He was offside.
Yeah, that was. You know what? And that's
Two
the worst,
brilliant minds up here.
That's the worst thing about being an idiot on the air is then somebody's going to think you were serious, and that's what we were talking. The last time that happened to me, it was in '96, and Joey remembers this. I hosted the games in Ottawa for a year, and they had all the players on at a season ticket holder function before the season started, and we Greg Millen and I and Dee Brown had to interview some of the players. So I was asked to interview Daniel Alfredson, who had won the Rookie of the year before, and Alfie then his English wasn't great, but he understood. And I said, I'm going to ask you, do you think you could be the first player to win Rookie of the Year twice? To which he answered, if I stay healthy, I think I can. But it went through these channels that I was so stupid that you can't win Rookie of the Year twice. And And it was Pat Burns, I think, was doing radio in Montreal at the time that bailed me out and said he was kidding. It was a joke.
It was a joke.
Yeah. Got him.
Anyway, he was offside, by the way.
Yeah, he was. He mishandled it as blue. The one thing, and we're good friends with Jordan Bean, and he's on a roll. I mean, he's like 10 for 10 here on challenges, and that was a brilliant piece of maneuvering, because that was very tough to see, and certainly up here we couldn't see it. And I understand that Mike Johnson was down between the benches, and the first thing you hear is the coach is going, "Was there a replay here?" And they're getting the response from the guys in the room, and that's quick thinking. And certainly being focused on things and having that ability to do that, they're like 10 for 10, and those guys have got to take some of the big time credit for something like that.
Joe, Bowen, Jim, Ralph, our guests here on OverDrive, the radio voices of the Toronto Maple Leafs, ahead of Leafs and Kraken tonight on TSN 1050. You can also watch it on TSN 4. Mark Giordano, week to week with the broken finger, fellas. What do we make of this Leafs decor right now with a lot of inexperience in the back end?
Well, I think it's very similar to last year, right? You lose, they lost Morgan Riley for a stretch. TJ Brody was out for a stretch, and you had guys that were able to come in and step up. That's why you went and got Connor Timmins in the first place. So you've got a lot of, I guess you would call them sort of, medium grade guys. But, if they play decent around them defensively and more as a 5-man unit, I don't think they get exposed that much. So I think that's exactly why you went out and got Benoit and Legason, guys that had NHL experience in the offseason for this moment.
And
exactly.
Max Lajoie has been brought up as well. Yeah. So, you have to take a look at your farm system and your farm team and say, you know what, can these guys kind of stick their thumb in the dike to keep the water from flowing out and be in position to help till things get back to somewhat normal. Now, there are obviously going to be some talks, and I'm sure Brad Treliving is on the phone, but you don't want to give away the farm just to kind of solve things here in a short-term basis. So it'll be interesting to see how things work out, but you got to have some trust in the people that you have brought into your system, not only at the NHL level, but at the American Hockey League level.
Bonesy, Ralphie, sometimes you get into the building before the game and you just have a gut feeling. You're like, my spidey senses are tingling. And I don't know if you guys are feeling this way before this game, but it feels like it's a great night for Matthews and Marner to really break out against Seattle. Seattle hasn't had very good goaltending. Both those guys have been quiet lately. Is that the feeling you get before this game, that it could be a big night for Matthews and Marner?
Frankie, you got to stop doing that.
With the spidey senses?
We've had this discussion before.
No.
Whether it was Chicago or Montreal.
No. I think the difference.
The feeling, anyway?
I think the difference is those times we were disparaging the other team. Now we're just pumping up our own team.
Oh.
That's different.
Yeah, okay, sure.
His spidey senses aren't feeling it right now.
When you put it that way. Yeah. I mean, you would like to think, because now it's really been, an 8-game stretch for more. And with all due respect to analytics, when Ryan Reeves has as many goals in the last 8 games as Matthews and Marner combined, then you say, you're due for a breakout game. So hopefully it's tonight, but I think it's just as important, and I would hope you'd agree that the goals against have been a lot better over the last 5 or 6 games as well. I think that's, as much as you can worry about your top 6, I think that stat was the one that probably needed taking care of a little more.
Bonesy, I heard you praise Joseph Woll's play because he's great at tracking the puck, and he's coming off of one of his best performances of the season. And Ralphie, you can chime in on this too. Do you think it's the right move to give Woll the runway here?
You know what? You have to base it on how you're playing, I think, and as opposed to just going in and taking the calendar and saying, you're here, no, you're there, and everything else. I think you have to play the system and play the schedule to how the goaltender is playing. And you have to reward people for the way they played. And I mean, he was brilliant in his last outing, and why not give him another bit of a runway to go with it here? So after the games are spaced out. It's not like you're going to tax him by any stretch of the imagination. But this is a kid that you might be hanging your hat on for a number of years. And I think that you've got to give him the opportunity to run with the ball here a little bit. And then, you're going to have to sift it around. But I think this is the opportunity now to give him a little runway, let him play a couple of games in advance, in succession, and see how things go. Because I honestly think that this is the kid that's going to be around here for a number of years.
Bonesy, Ralphie, thank you so much for doing this. And if Frankie's intuition is correct, a lot of goal calls tonight that we can play on TSN 1050.
I do have one favor for you guys, though.
Okay.
Before you go, when you talk to Ronnie Francis, ask him who's the best left-handed goalie he grew up with in the Sioux.
Consider it done.
Perfect.
Consider it done.
If he says Esposito, he's lying.
Move on. For Greg Millen.
Yeah. Joe Bowen and Jim Ralph on the call. Leafs and Kraken tonight. Thank you, fellas. And they joined us on the Maple Toyota hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota and check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory arriving daily. It's time for Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. Again, the big news in the NHL, Nikita Zadorov traded to the Vancouver Canucks.
When I teased the breaking news and I said Zadorov traded, I saw your eyes and I saw your eyes, Frankie. Did you think I was going to say the Toronto Maple Leafs?
No, because
before a
JP
game?
had just told me that he was traded to the Canucks.
Nobody tells me. Nobody tells me.
Yeah,
I had
he's
no
the
idea.
host of the show.
I had no idea.
Somebody
No one
should
told
tell
me.
him, boys.
Honestly, what I thought it was Ohtani. I really did. Like
breaking news?
my heart sank because we're just talking about Chris Johnston's tweet about Ohtani and what it would look like, and just imagine that tweet comes across like Buster Olney or Jeff Pass and the Toronto Blue Jays have made it happen with Shohei Ohtani. Not yet.
No.
But Zadorov, that's a big transaction as well.
Especially at this time of year in the NHL where it seems like it's so hard for teams to make a trade. A lot of GMs are reluctant to do it.
There's been 5 trades right now in the NHL, and the Vancouver Canucks have had 4 of them.
Oh, dude, that's Jimmy Rutherford.
Jimmy Trader wheeling.
Trader Jim has his finger on the trigger
Jim.
at all times. Did you see when there was a trade that came through? Was it last week? A guy named Tyce Thompson or something like that. Like,
yes.
It was the Islanders that made
that's Tage Thompson's brother.
I had to look at that and say, wait, Tage Thompson? No way.
Traded for an AHL.
Tyce Thompson.
Yeah, that would be a tough transaction to make with Tage Thompson. Don't think he's going to be traded anytime soon, but you do wonder what the domino effects are. Zadorov off the board, Calgary, not really sure what direction they're moving in. Now, again, they're a point out of the playoffs, and they're trading one of their top defensemen.
Well,
maybe not their top defenseman, but a guy who contributes to their roster in a significant way.
He's a top 6 guy for them. He's on their third pair, and he's not going to get ahead of
Zadorov?
Yeah, he's on their third pair.
I think he's going to be a second pair guy.
In Vancouver, he will be. Yeah, in Calgary, he wasn't playing ahead of Tanev, Hanifin, Anderson, and Uyghur, so he was placed there. But I don't know. Now you look at the guys that are available, and it gets slimmer quicker. The thing that Calgary doesn't bring back a roster player on this trade, so they're just getting picked. So that now you start to wonder, are they in sell the farm mode and just go for futures?
What I would say, and I respect Nikita Zadorov as a player. I think he's a quality NHL defenseman. But I wonder now, you consider where the Toronto Maple Leafs fall in this, and I'm sure they had the opportunity to go ahead and trade for Nikita Zadorov if they wanted to. A third rounder and a fifth rounder is not exactly the most prohibitive cost. Are they aiming higher? Is it Tanev? Is it Hanifin? Is it somebody else we're not even thinking about? And I think the answer has to be yes. Because, again, I like Nikita Zadorov. He's not transforming the Toronto Maple Leafs defense in any major way. Just not.
One guy, it doesn't matter which guy you bring in is not transforming.
Well, I mean, you bring in, Cale Makar, sure. But a legit stud. And would Hanifin as a one guy theoretically change the Toronto Maple Leafs? I think the answer is yes on that one. But, again, I don't know how realistic that is with salary and the cost.
Right.
That's expensive.
And I'd love to know where the Maple Leafs were in these discussions, and you see the trade being made today. Maybe Calgary was in a position where they wanted to maximize on the buzz around Zadorov while the price was high. And the Leafs, if they were a team that was in the mix, just wasn't prepared cap-wise to make that deal because they don't know the 100% future of John Klingberg.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm sure they're going to have
They're
clarity
probably
on
saying
it
you got to
soon.
wait because, who's to say Brad Treliving at the beginning of the week said we'll have a better idea on Klingberg's future by the end of the week because he's visiting specialists and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess.
What if he's not a guy that goes on LTR? Well, then you needed to move out salary to bring salary in. And what if Calgary's was interested in saying, no, we don't want
We want to do this now. We want to do it now while he's healthy. And I guess Jeffrey Klingberg, imagine he's like going to visit all these specialists and the Leafs acquire Nikita Zadorov. And he's like, how does that work?
I guess I am going on LTIR.
I guess Robida Island, first class ticket, lock me in.
You know, you don't want to jump to conclusion and say, like, there's people questioning that they can't believe they traded within the division, which is a fair question to ask, but I'd be curious to know how this all played out with the Maple Leafs, because I mean, Drager's mentioned it, CJ's mentioned it, Pierre LeBrun's mentioned it. The Maple Leafs showed interest. How did this not happen for a third and a fifth?
Well, I guess if Calgary is going to start selling off players, they don't really care if they're going to do it in division because they probably want to lose games anyways and go down.
They're probably looking at the market right now, and that's the best offer that they got, and they took it.
I don't think selling Nikita Zadorov is a tank move by any stretch. If you start moving Tanev and Hanifin out, yes, but I don't think Zadorov off their roster is going to fundamentally change anything.
Came out publicly and said he wanted a trade.
Exactly. 20 days ago, our pal Nick Alberga tweeted that out. 20 days ago, he asked for a trade, so now he gets his trade. So they were probably trying to make this happen for a little while. As you know, things don't happen.
And Conroy made it clear right at the beginning. Guys that don't want to be there, he's not going to keep them there. Remember when Toffoli said he wasn't happy with his contract? 2 days later, he was shipped off to New Jersey. So,
for the Leafs, in my opinion, they need to aim a lot higher than Nikita Zadorov being their primary pre-trade deadline acquisition.
Yeah, but if a third and a fifth brings you a top 6 NHL defenseman, you go get him.
You can do that for sure, but I think you want to allocate those resources in a more effective way. And I like Zadorov, but again, his career high is 22 points.
Yeah, but I'm not anybody who expects Zadorov to come in and be the
and no one is. That's
why missing piece and the team that's going to take this team to the next level. No, I look at Zadorov as just another very high quality NHL defenseman that brings something different to your lineup. That's it. The Maple Leafs don't have that type of player.
No, they don't. And that's the physicality that they are lacking. But I'm certain they're working on alternatives. And maybe they were close on Zadorov, but I think you're right with Klingberg and the LTIR situation. I don't think they can make that move yet because that situation has not been ironed out yet. But I imagine as soon as it is, that's when the Leafs could pull the trigger. Every weekday, we'll announce a current or former Maple Leafs player here on OverDrive. And on Fridays, you'll have the chance to call in and name the Leafs lineup of the week. Name all the players in the lineup, and you'll score a pair of tickets to an upcoming Leaf game. Today's player, Toronto Maple Leafs royalty, Carlo Colaiacovo.
Whoa!
My goodness, great selection.
Nice.
How did I get bang? This is an honor. What are you talking about?
Frankie played for the Leafs too.
Maybe Frankie was already in it.
Oh, you're already in it.
Yeah, I was.
It's a compliment. It's not an insult.
Oh, I just didn't want to embarrass Frankie. I would have done it together.
I'm actually quite capable of embarrassing myself.
Yes. Pro athlete salute, guys. Go ahead. This week, we're giving away a pair of tickets to see the Leafs and the Preds on December the 9th. We're also throwing in a $250 Vanilla Visa prepaid card with each pair of tickets to make it the ultimate game night. Vanilla Visa prepaid cards are available for purchase at Petro Canada. Coco?
Yes.
It's been a blast, buddy. I know you got to go over to the Montreal Canadiens panel. What a night here at TSN. Al's brother, the OverDrive guys on the Leafs panel, you on the Habs panel. Frankie and I will take it from here. It's been a blast.
You know what? Wilson. Was that your first time meeting
Luke?
No, I've met him a bunch of times.
You met him before?
Luke Wilson.
He's an absolute beauty. Dude, he lives down the street from me now. I'm going to start hanging out with him more.
You should.
Going for bike rides. Can you imagine me and him on bike rides?
Dude, I need you in that
tandem bikes.
I need you in that tight leotard with the helmet and the sunglasses.
I'm going to ask Luke if he wants to ride a tandem bike.
I would be so jealous if Carlo started to hang out with Luke Wilson.
Yeah.
I'd be devastated.
That'd be tough for your brand. You couldn't chirp Carlo in the morning for 4 hours.
The Dave Babbage mustache?
Yeah, man.
That was a good one.
We got to get Viz on that. Yes. We never got the Viz.
We'll work on it.
Well, boys, it's true what they say. Time flies when you're having fun. It was a lot of fun today working with you boys.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun on the Habs panel as well. So we'll watch for you there.
If the audience enjoyed the fun, me and AK are on the station every morning from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Yes, 6 a.m.
You guys want to plug the podcast? Plug the podcast.
Yeah, First Up Podcast. Wherever podcasts are found, we'll be live on the radio in about, 11 and a half hours. So
5-star rating.
5-star rating on the podcast as well. We appreciate
Pigeon
it.
or Peacock.
Coco.
Staple.
We'll see you tomorrow at 6 a.m.
Ciao, boys. Ciao, everybody.
That's Carlo Colaiacovo. Off to do the Habs panel again. Hayes, Noodles, O-Dog, maybe Al's brother. That's the rumor. They're on the Leafs panel tonight for their game against the Seattle Kraken, a game you can also hear on TSN 1050. And Frank, you and I get the amazing opportunity to chat with the general manager of the Seattle Kraken, who's in town tonight, of course, with the Leafs playing Seattle. It's Ron Francis, Hockey Hall of Famer and GM of the Kraken, joining us next. Overdrive continues here in the third hour of the show. Aaron Korolnek and Frankie Corrado with you until 7. We have the Toronto Maple Leafs on the network tonight against the Seattle Kraken. Their general manager, Ron Francis, will join us in just a moment. You can also listen to the game on TSN 1050. The breaking news this hour, a trade in the National Hockey
We have a trade
League.
to announce.
Pretty good Bevan impersonation.
I
actually.
could
I'm
do
impressed.
it better.
I'm impressed, Frank. I'm impressed. The Calgary Flames have traded Nikita Zadorov, who's been a subject of trade rumors for a month now.
20 days.
20 days.
20 days he asked for a trade.
It was 20 days ago?
20
Okay,
days ago.
very precise. They traded him to the Vancouver Canucks for a third-round pick and a fifth-round pick. So that's the deal. You wonder, could the Toronto Maple Leafs have gotten involved? Who knows? But they didn't. Or maybe at least they didn't execute the deal. He's a Vancouver Canuck, and that is the breaking news this evening. Again, Toronto, Seattle tonight down at Scotiabank Arena. We are thrilled to welcome in the general manager of the Seattle Kraken, Hockey Hall of Famer. It's Ron Francis with us here on Overdrive. Good evening, Ron. How are you?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
Very well, thank you. When you see a trade break, is there something like in a general manager group chat? Hey, there's a transaction that's been made. How does a GM find out about a trade in the NHL?
Usually when we read about it like everybody else,
So just like the players that find out on Twitter?
unless you're involved in it, yeah.
Okay, there you go.
We got a bit of an obscure question for you. So someone wants to know, who's the best left-handed goalie you ever played with from Sault Ste. Marie? And I'll give you a hint. He may be in the same building as you.
My buddy Jimmy Ralph, is that what they're looking for?
That's it. That's the golden clip that Jimmy Ralph was looking for an answer. Ron, you played a year in Toronto, the tail end of your career. You're from Southern Ontario. What does it mean for you to be back in Toronto?
Well, I think as a kid growing up in the Sioux, it's always, you watch the Leafs every Saturday night at Hockey Night Canada, and then, in the junior ranks playing in the Sioux, you get a chance to play in Toronto, and then finally you get the chance in the NHL. And, for me, I was fortunate I got to play in the old Maple Leaf Gardens and then the new rink as well. So just a great hockey town. And always exciting to come back to this market and be involved in the game.
Ron, your team had a great season last year. It really was the talk of the league about what a complete team Seattle was and, getting balanced scoring. And, this season you look at your record and 8-10-5. It hasn't really been as successful as last season, but I'm sure things are trending in the right direction. Like, how do you manage the expectations from your group? I'm sure you want to see more from them, but it is still a relatively young group here in your infancy in the NHL.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're still fairly early in the process, but it's, we had a great season last year, and you hope you can pick up and build off of that. That hasn't been the case so far. I mean, the lineup we thought we were going to ice this season, we haven't actually played one full game with it yet. We lost Tandem in Game 1 and Burakovsky in Game 5 and Schwartz the other night. So it's been a little bit of a challenge in that regard. But, guys keep battling and fighting. Just been a little inconsistent. We seem to take a couple steps forward and then a step back. So hopefully we can get it figured out here and start playing more similar to last year shortly.
Our guest is Ron Francis, Hockey Hall of Famer, the Executive VP and General Manager of the Seattle Kraken, who are in town tonight in Toronto to play the Maple Leafs. You mentioned injuries, and of course, that's part of any hockey season when you're running a club. We're at the quarter point of the NHL season, American Thanksgiving in the rear view. How do you kind of balance the idea of all the injuries you've suffered when trying to ascertain exactly what you have as a hockey team right now?
Yeah, no question. It's a challenge because you haven't been able to see your full team and really get a sense of, watch them play for a few games and get a sense of what they're all about. So a little bit more challenging there. I thought our schedule early was tough. The break, the holiday break in a position that was, I thought, pretty good. We still got a lot of play. This year's kind of unique. I mean, you see it each and every night. Anybody's capable of winning on any night if you're not ready to play. And, been a few teams maybe will put streaks together, but a lot of sort of up and down for teams. And right now we're in that boat. So, hopefully we can get her going. Last year we had a good November and then we really took off in January, but hopefully we can show signs of doing that again.
Ron, I don't know if you follow this kind of stuff, but every year at TSN, we do a top 50 list, and a bunch of us compile one. There was one player on your team I just couldn't keep off my list, and that was Matty Beniers. I had him 49 or 50, but I just see so much in this young man as a hockey player. Like, what do you see out of Matty Beniers on a day-to-day in Seattle?
Well, he's a terrific kid, first and foremost, and then he's a real good hockey player. I mean, he gives you what he has every day, whether it's in practice, games, every shift he's competing as hard as he can. And, it's still early in the process for Matty. We forget kind of how young he is still, but, only his second full season that he's starting here this year. So still has room to grow, and we think he'll continue to get better and better as his career moves forward.
Ron Francis, our guest, the GM of the Seattle Kraken. You guys coming off a game against the Chicago Blackhawks and Connor Bedard. Do you kind of get, when you watched that game, did you see any of a young Jeff O'Neill in Connor Bedard, your former teammate in Hartford, Ron?
I'm not sure anybody could be a young Jeff O'Neill, but yeah, no, I mean, I've seen enough of Connor the last few years to know he's going to be a hell of an NHL player for a long time, and similar like O-Dog was. So they both can shoot the puck very well.
Ron, we talked about the Nikita Zadorov trade, and that happens right in your backyard with the Vancouver Canucks, who have put themselves in a good spot this season. But we've been trying to, nail down players here in Toronto that maybe would fit the Leafs best. And, we don't see a lot of trades this time of year. And now with Zadorov off the board, you see the, defensemen that may be available around the league. That gets a little thinner. Like, how hard is it as a general manager to acquire quality defensemen who can have an impact in your lineup?
Yeah, I think as a player, you always worried you're getting traded or something's going to happen, and then you flip the switch and you go on the management side, and you make a lot of phone calls and try and do a lot of things, and it's not as easy as people think to find the right player first and foremost, and then find the right contract that fits in the cap. So there's a lot of things that go into the equation, but certainly, when you find a good quality D, you want to hang on to.
Ron, we can't thank you enough for taking the time tonight, especially on a game night. Leafs and Kraken tonight. Best of luck tonight and for the rest of the season.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Take care.
Thank you. That is Ron Francis, the GM of the Kraken, the 5th leading scorer in the history of the National Hockey League. Played more than 1,700 NHL games.
Amazing.
The dude never missed a game. Just like you look at his career, even when he was at the tail end, was playing 82 games every single year and still racking up the points. What a legend.
Not many guys can do that, man. And that's, I think, what frustrates the guys that do this show regularly when it comes to some of the basketball stuff and guys sitting out. Like a guy like, he played with Ron and he saw the grind that this guy went through. And that's part of the greatness, right? Like the skill level, the accomplishments, but the grind to be able to do it year after year and then the longevity involved. That's a big deal, man. It's not easy to do that.
The response is always the same whenever you ask about a former teammate about the O-Dog as a youngster in the NHL. It's like, there's no one like the O-Dog.
No.
There's no one like the O-Dog. One of one. It is uniform when that question is posed. I knew Ron Francis's answer before I even asked the question.
You had to ask it anyway.
You have to answer. You get some good. You get some good stories. You get some good stories on the O-Dog, who you could see on tonight's Leafs and Kraken panel alongside Noodles and Brian Hayes and maybe some special guests as well. Maybe.
They've got, Seattle's got an interesting blue line because they got Adam Larson from Edmonton, who Edmonton dearly misses, but he chose to take his talents to Seattle, signs a free agent deal there. Vince Dunn is an interesting guy because
Toronto kid, really good offensively, plays with some bite. He's pretty physical. He's not afraid to mix it up. Justin Schultz has been a good power play guy in the NHL for a long time. His days in Pittsburgh were his best, but he still provides a little bit offensively. Jamie Alexiak is a monster. That's a guy that Zadorov just got traded. He's got his deficiencies as a player. Jamie Alexiak is a much better player than Zadorov. He can handle the pill. He's not as much of a liability with the puck as Zadorov is. It's a really interesting trade, the Zadorov move to the Vancouver Canucks. Again, if you missed it, this happened about 40 minutes ago. Calgary, pending UFA, Nikita Zadorov, big hulking D-man, who had requested a trade immediately after who did he hit? Noah Gregor, I believe?
I think it was Bertuzzi.
Wait, was it Tyler Bertuzzi? Okay.
Yeah. And
a big hit in
came
Toronto.
Back in that game.
Oh, they did. Yeah, that was the Hall of Fame night on the Friday night against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then he requested a trade, Dan Milstein, his agent, and eventually they get their wish. And I think for Zadorov, it's a great fit in in Vancouver. He'll play a significant role, maybe even a top 4 role. And for Calgary, what that signals, Again, I don't think it's necessarily a waving the white flag.
It's hard to know. It's hard to know at this point.
Now, Hanifin goes, then I think that would qualify.
Yeah, and maybe then Tanev will be right there behind him.
You would rather have Tanev than Zadorov if you're the Leafs, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yes.
But that's why, I made the point last night on Jay's show. It's like, if they're this desperate, and if you look at the lineup, you think they probably are, and there should be a lot of urgency to make a move because they're dressing 3 AHL players and they needed a D-man before the season. Why not go out and try and get both? But I think Carlo brought up a good point where it's like, in order to make the money work, Klingberg probably had to go to LTIR. They haven't come to that conclusion yet because there's logistics involved in that. And meanwhile, Trader Jim, he slides in there and he throws in a little 5th-round pick. Thanks for coming. And he gets Nikita Zadorov. The Shark Tank, baby.
It is. And for Vancouver, they've had this unbelievable start. Continue building on it. I think that would be a real nice point of reaffirmation for that team. It's like, oh, look at our GM going out and improving our hockey team. That's got to feel great as a player. And I'm sure you've experienced that as well.
Rutherford recognizes that because there's a lot of good things happening in Vancouver. The goalie's playing exceptional night after night.
Great.
Quinn Hughes is he's in the conversation with Makar. Personally, I'm still taking Makar, but he's in that conversation with the best goalie in the league. And then JT Miller's had this resurgence this year where he's embraced this kind of shutdown role guy, matchup guy, but he's also top 5 in the league in points. So you don't think of the matchup guy, getting all these points and being a top 5 player that way, but there's just everything seems to be going right, and Rick Tocchet has them playing a certain way, a certain style that's conducive to winning, and they're prepared every night. So when they are where they are in the standings, it's you kind of owe it to the players to say, you guys did this. Now we're going to bring in some reinforcements.
And the Leafs will bring in reinforcements at some point in time. That is my personal guarantee to you, Frank. It's just a matter of who it is and how they get it done. But I can pretty much say with the utmost of certainty, you won't be seeing William Lagesson and Simon Benoit in playoff games.
No. And hey, that's not a shot at those guys because both those guys have stepped in and done a really good job in a tough situation. Because if those guys come up from the Marlies and they're liabilities and they're giving the puck away and they're getting beat one-on-one, that magnifies the issue even more. And I would even say those guys have played so well that the depth hasn't been that much of an issue on the back end. It's just how long are they going to be able to go before it does become an issue? Because at some point, it's the NHL, it's the best league in the world. I would say it's a very unforgiving league to inexperienced defensemen. I lived that. It's just, it's sometimes it's only a matter of time.
It is, and it's a good opportunity for those guys to establish themselves in the NHL, get some playing time because Mark Giordano, he's out week to week. We think Liljegren is probably still out for a while here with that ankle injury. I have not heard anything on that front.
That's a tough one. The high ankle sprain, man.
You've dealt with that. You've dealt with that. So I know. And then John Klingberg may never play in the NHL again. So that's 3 of the 6 defensemen that they had to start the season who are out for an extended period of time. So they either make a move or they ride with those guys. And my guess is for the time being, at least until they get some clarity on Klingberg, it will be the latter as opposed to the former. Leafs and Kraken tonight. On TSN 4, up on TSN 1050 as well. Puck drop just after 7. I'm Aaron Korolnek. That's my man Frank Corrado. You're watching Overdrive on TSN 2 and listening on TSN 1050. Final segment for the afternoon here on Overdrive. You're watching on TSN 2, listening on TSN 1050. I'm Aaron Korolnek. My friend Frank Corrado across the table. Carlo has left us. He is doing the Montreal Canadiens panel.
You know what I just realized? The Montreal Canadiens game that Carlo is going to be on is on TSN 2. So this guy's been on TSN 2. He's going to be on TSN 2 all night.
What a superstar.
Mr. TSN 2.
He
Carlo
is Mr.
Colaiacovo.
TSN.
Yes.
I don't know who would actually get that title. Maybe Duffy or Darren Detition.
Yeah.
I might be omitting someone. I don't want to offend anybody here. This is completely off the top of my head here.
Yeah.
Dutchie gets it for me. Dutchie's Mr.
Well, if they had to fight for it, Dutchie.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably take Duffy too. So Dutchie most certainly could.
Yeah.
Most certainly could. News coming from Kevin Weeks on Twitter that the Maple Leafs needed the Flames to retain salary in the Zadorov trade to make it work on their end, which is no surprise. Again, because John Klingberg, his situation has not yet been ironed out. My guess, my assumption is that the Leafs were probably like, hey, just wait. And Calgary had a deal they liked. We're just doing this.
Strike while the iron's hot. You're getting a third and a fifth, and you might as well take it.
That's it.
So, yeah, Vancouver makes a move to bolster their blue line, and they're a good team. They mean business out in the Pacific, and I agree with you. Maybe it's not a massive opportunity missed by the Leafs. Like maybe there is a trade out there or trades multiple that still help them address the blue line. Nikita Zadorov, like there's other players that can help you. He's not the be-all, end-all when it comes to the rental market on defense.
I don't think it's Zadorov for the Leafs. I don't think he was the move. I think he's one of 2, maybe 3 moves that might get the Leafs to a point defensively where I look at them and I'm like, okay. And again, you look at last year. Luke Schenn was playing with Morgan Riley. Jake McCabe, he was playing the top 4. Gustafsson was in and out of the lineup as kind of an offensive power play guy. That's 3. That's 2 at least with Schenn and McCabe. Significant moves. And I think the Leafs are worse defensively this year than they were at this time last year. So
for sure,
in that case, Tree Living is a smart guy. He's talked about it on Monday. Hit and miss, inconsistency, and this is a hockey club that at home over these, early part of the season has really struggled keeping the puck out of their own net. Now, some of that has been inconsistent goaltending, which we have seen, but a lot of that has to do with the defense that they have right now with the injuries and the overall inexperience in the group. It's something they need to fix, and they will fix it, or they'll at least attempt to fix it.
They will fix it.
They
Tree
will
Living
fix it.
has acquired a lot of very good defensemen over his tenure in Calgary. Just probably need time to transpire so he can make the appropriate moves.
So on the subject of defense, I'm not expecting a lot of it tonight in Seattle and Toronto. As such, today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. I was tasked with putting together the OverDrive SGP for the Maple Leafs and Kraken game tonight. Here's what I came up with. Over 6.5 goals in the game. William Nylander, 4+ shots, and a goal in the first 10 minutes of the hockey game. In Seattle's last 9 games, Frank, it's happened in all 9 of them. Forget about the 10th game. The last 9, it's hit, and it's going to hit again tonight to make it 10 in a row. Today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. FanDuel's goal in the first 10 minutes is the most electric bet in hockey and can be included in a same-game parlay on any NHL game. Please play responsibly, 18+ and physically in Ontario. You noticed
Doogie jammed you up there on the read.
I did a pretty good job of recovering.
Yeah, I saw it coming,
and Hayes, I recall on a number of occasions has brought this up. I don't know what you guys are doing, but there's,
Doogie, pop your mic on.
What it says.
What's going on there?
Today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. And then it says immediately after the next sentence, today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Doogie, explain.
My apologies, man. My apologies.
Doogie, I love you. I love you. I would never sewer you. In fact, Doogie this morning sends us just a delightful message that really started my day in a positive way. And it started with, hey guys, it's Doogie.
It's Doogie.
And I'm like, yeah, it's Josh. You've been working at TSN for a number of years. I respect your work immensely.
Yeah.
But he's Doogie now.
This kid's an all-star, man.
He is.
Yeah. Well, we got all kinds of emails, clips today.
Like, what a team on OverDrive. Joe from the Bridge on the TV side, JP and Doogie. It's an all-star team.
What a team effort the Leafs are going to need tonight. Seattle in town, underachieving team if you want to call it that, but it would be a great night for the star players to break through, have a big night, and for the Leafs' performance to be that of which they get off to a lead, and it's a clean, tidy, neat, and efficient game where they control the game from start to finish, and it doesn't have to go down to the wire, and it's not a tie game heading into the last 5 minutes. Like, it would be nice for this group to have a stress-free game tonight.
And I think it's going to happen. I'm feeling good about it. I think it'll be a high-scoring game, but I think it's one that the Leafs control. I can see 5-3 Toronto.
If it's a high-scoring game, if it's high event in front of Seattle's goal and low event in front of Toronto's, that's perfect. That's exactly what they want.
Well, this is a team in Seattle that has Grubauer in goal. He has not been good. That's been a difficult signing for the Kraken. And I think about a number of those goaltenders of similar age. Jack Campbell would be another example. Even Korpisalo with Ottawa. Darcy Kemper in Washington. Man, goaltending, a flip of the coin. And I truly believe, and the Leafs are doing it, Colorado's doing it, Boston's doing it, Vegas is doing it. Can't spend big money on your goalies unless
the LA Kings.
LA Kings are spending, Talbot and Copley, they don't spend anything.
They're spending 13 cents on their goaltending this year.
And you could make the argument, Bobrovsky carried Florida to the Cup final. That's absolutely true. And we know it's Sorokin and Shesterkin and Vasilevsky and all these Hellebuck, Ottinger. It's true. But I think you're seeing kind of a changing of the winds when it comes to the approach in goaltending because if you commit a big ticket, and I think Edmonton's the prime example, they're going to call Campbell back up at some point in time, but all those 4 teams I mentioned, those 4 goaltenders are tied up long-term, And I think everybody is uncertain as to what they are.
Sometimes a goaltender is going to be in your organization, like a Connor Hellebuck. He forces your hand. You're not going to let him go. You're going to sign him. So you hope you get the results with that. But yeah, a free agent signing like Jack Campbell, probably ill-advised. I don't know if you saw a tweet today, though. He's put together 3 good starts. His last 3 starts in the American Hockey. He's like a 960. So maybe there's hope for Jack.
He's back.
Listen, I hope he can get back to what he should be as a goalie, and it would be better for him and the Oilers. But this is a good show today, buddy.
Frank, I had a blast. Again, Carlo was here earlier. If you missed any of the show, you can find the podcast wherever podcasts are found. OverDrive, one of the top podcasts in all of Canada when it comes to sports and otherwise. I want to thank Doogie and JP and Joe from The Bridge and our audience for being with us for 3 full hours.
Thank you. We know we're not the regulars,
exactly.
But thank you for sticking with us. We appreciate it.
I know there were some, derogatory comments early on, but we got past them. We take no offense. So, Frank, been a blast, buddy. Looking forward to doing this again in the not-too-distant future. Korolnek, Corrado, the regular trio will be back on OverDrive tomorrow at 4 p.m.